Hello and welcome to, I'm not sure what episode this is. I want to say 193 of Sutton Impact Family Style. I'm Jason.
I'm Bill. And Jay, let's start off with it's a big NBA week.
Huge NBA week.
So let's talk about what you think about the draft. The first three picks went kind of the way you think they would go, right?
They did. The only thing I would say about those first three picks is it seems like nobody really wanted to move up. And everybody was pretty happy I know there was talks of Detroit and New York wanting to move up, but nobody really wanted to move up. But did you see what the Georgia kid, the number one overall pick, Edwards, what his coach said about him?
No, what they say?
He said that he's a really good kid, but that he really worries about his development, both as an on-court player and as a person, and that they really hopes he ends up somewhere I think he was sort of implying somewhere like Golden State, where you're getting, Draymond and Steph and some, really good leaders, as opposed to maybe Karl Anthony Towns and a rough situation in Minnesota. Like, he feels like he's one of those guys who could be derailed, both from a basketball development and a, bad habit on and off the court development.
Well, I hope not, because the Timberwolves are real happy with because I talked to those guys this week.
Yeah, I hope so too. I just thought, you figure if you're the Georgia head coach, you get the number one recruit in basketball, the number one pick in the NBA draft. That looks good for you recruiting players moving forward. And for you to say that on the record.
Yeah, it seems kind of strange, but
yeah.
Did you say that before the draft or after the draft?
He said it before the draft. He was basically just sort of implying, I hope he gets somewhere where there's the right people around him. Because he needs a lot of work with his game and his person, as a person. So,
what did you think of the Weissman Golden State pick?
That's what people have been saying for 6 months now, all through quarantine. They said the Clay pick, they had nothing to do with, what they did at that point. They were going to do what they were going to do. As we talked offline, Clay missing the last, sort of 2 seasons and taking the Golden State Warriors out of, I guess, realistic contention. It's just a bummer.
It really is.
I think you add Kelly Oubre, and I think he's looked like a lot better player than they thought he was as a bust out in Washington. And, Wiseman in the draft, who, has a lot of potential. And he's a big that could go up against, again, we talked about Jokic and Davis are the 2 players that are going to be around forever in the West on perennial contenders in Denver and LA. And you got to have somebody to at least bang against them. And maybe he can be that guy, but it's just a bummer watching what happened to DC. I'm also disappointed that apparently we're not going to get a Daddy Ball versus old man Michael Jordan basketball game.
Yeah, I saw that.
Despite the fact that he drafted him, we're not going to get to see that game.
And no ball or shoes either.
And no ball or shoes. We talked a little bit last week off the air. I feel like I'm biased against the balls. Going into this draft, you read people and listen to people, but I wonder how I would have felt about Ball if I had just watched him, as, a Smith or a Johnson or something. I didn't know, we didn't bring all the baggage and, the attention to the Facebook reality show.
I think he'll, just like Lonzo, I think he'll really struggle this year. I think he'll really struggle. I think that, he's got a huge upside, so they say he's supposed to be the best of all of them, but I think he's really going to struggle this year.
I wonder, and I didn't see this player comp, so I'll throw this out on my own, but as someone that used to eat the same meal I did at Chef Steph, I feel like his ceiling might be white chocolate. Jason Williams. A tremendous passer who, for every great play makes an insanely stupid play, a mediocre shooter, and, a starter from time to time, but not a superstar. And that's who I sort of see when I watched him play.
Okay. Let's talk about some free agent signings. Let's start with Gordon Hayward. $130 million for 4 years to Charlotte.
Yeah, that's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money for somebody that hasn't really played a lot in the last 3 years.
No. But when he has played, last year, even as the 4th option on the Celtics, he was averaging 19, 7, and 6. And he knows how to...
He's got ability. He's 30 years old, and that's a lot of money.
It is. But as we also talked about, Charlotte's not a free agent destination typically.
Yep.
And, maybe you feel like Gordon, maybe also with the Ball brother as your first round draft pick, maybe this is also an investment in, a reliable veteran presence to help that team along.
Yeah, or maybe people thought Mike was going to pay too much attention to his racing team, so he already spent a lot of money on his basketball team.
It could be. I think the bigger implications, I know that the Boston Celtics ended up signing Tristan Thompson as the center du jour, but, it looked like Gordon Hayward wanted to go to Indianapolis, and it was going to be Miles Turner and a player to come back to Boston. And, Boston basically just lost him for nothing. Indiana didn't get him, and I think both those teams got worse while Charlotte got a player that's probably not going to help them even make the 10th seed. So just from a competitive standpoint, it's sort of a bummer. And again, nothing against Tristan Thompson, but I felt like the Celtics with what they had, plus Miles Turner, and, there was potentially Oladipo, TJ Warren. I know that the Pacers wanted to throw in Doug McDermott instead of those two guys. But, that could have really changed the balance for both Indiana. Indiana adds Gordon Hayward instead of Miles Turner, who didn't really do much for them. And, Boston adds those players. And that's two Eastern teams getting better as opposed to the Charlotte, Bobcats doing what they did.
Yeah. We both like Dwight Howard going to the Sixers.
And I'm interested to see, I keep seeing everyone, when I say everyone, all the analytics guys, like the Kevin O'Connors and some of those people talking about how if you're the Sixers, you have to trade for Harden. And I feel like there's enough that's come out around Harden lately that I still don't care what the numbers are. I don't think he'd be whichever guy you kept would be happy playing with Harden.
No, I don't think a lot of people want to play with Harden because you have to stand around too much.
You stand around a lot, and I know he always says the right thing that he wants to, cut more and move back, but I don't know if he can at this point in his career, if that's something he can mentally do. And then between that and the fact that, out of Chris Paul's camp and Russ's camp and Dwight Howard's camp back in the day, there's a lot of, Russ is sort of the spoiled child in that building and that he's not accountable for anything. And you look back and it's like, people are always like, well, look at his assist numbers. And if you have the ball all those times, I feel like everybody would stumble into those sorts of assists. And again, it's not to take away from Harden as a scorer and all those sorts of things, but I think what Philly's done is nice. They got off Horford, they got off Richardson, they brought in some shooting. And I feel like you got to run it back with at least 1 year of Embiid and Simmons and see what Doc Rivers can do with those two.
Sure. It looked like Atlanta spent a lot of money on Rondo and didn't really go on Murray.
It sounds like they are ready to be in the playoffs, whether those teams, your stars, are really ready to be there. Dallas did I like what Dallas did a lot, speaking of other teams. They added Richards, they added the Sixer guys, which, on any other team, he's sort of overpaid, but is, the running mate to Luka. You don't have to worry about having the ball, just play good defense, lock down. They drafted a couple of really good defenders in the draft coming out, and then they added Tyrell Terry, who some people thought was, Steph Curry light, which is Seth Curry, who they traded to the Sixers to add them shooting. And
I really liked that team last year, so I think that they're going to be a force this year.
They are. I guess the Lakers added Montrezl Harrell,
which weakened the Clippers, so it's a doubleheader for them.
Yeah, but the Clippers also signed Serge Ibaka, which I think is an upgrade over Harrell for them. Maybe not in the regular season, but in the postseason, I think. It's interesting. And, Dennis Schroeder to the Lakers, they brought in some new blood. And then I guess the biggest thing we have to talk about is Bogdan Bogdanovic not going to the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yeah, and staying in Sacramento, right?
For now. They think he's going to sign and trade somewhere else, but it sounds like at least the minimum punishment for what the Bucks apparently did, which when you watch free agency, when everybody signs at 12:01 or whatever time they start, all these deals.
Those deals have already been done.
Yeah, I guess this from what I saw from Brian Windhorst and others is that the Bogdanovic deal was a little bit blatant. And, now if you're the Bucks, instead of having Bogdanovic, Drew, Giannis, and you're ready to go, you just lost a big piece. And you lost all those draft picks. Not that they were part of it, but if I'm Giannis, I'm definitely looking at my situation as much weaker now. And
I'm also looking forward to watching my Phoenix Suns this year after their moves.
yeah. And see how much of that 8-0 bubble record continues.
Yeah. But Chris Paul will be a nice piece to add to that team to develop Dayton and, what else we get here. So it'd be good. Before we leave the NBA, what do you think about your Knicks?
I don't know. I mean, it's still a team that seems like they're just so far away from being what they need to be. And I saw Stephen A. was not super happy with the pick. He really wanted Halliburton, who fell to 12 to the Kings, who people thought could go as high as, at some point I saw like as high as, the Warriors really wanted him even at 2. And, they just felt like a Knicks guard. I know you picked a hometown kid who had a lot of success in college, but he is 22, which apparently is a bad thing to be if you're going into the NBA. And he's another forward on a team that, maybe could have used, a guard. And he doesn't play defense, or he's not known for playing defense, and he's going to Thibodeau. I don't know. I don't know if things are going to get better there. And I don't even, obviously Dolan is, whatever he is, but he doesn't make a lot of the basketball decisions. He hires people and lets them make it, and he spends money. So, I'm not even sure if it's, maybe it's just a curse. I don't know. I don't have a lot of confidence moving forward with the Knicks. I'm interested to see down in Orlando, an Evan, a Gordon, some of these other guys. Is anybody going to move? Is it what? Because, who's the big player that's going on the move that's going to make a difference? And what are they going to do? Back to our former hometown.
I was surprised they weren't more active.
Yeah.
All right, changing gears. I will acknowledge that Oklahoma is probably the best 2-loss team in the country. Oklahoma State has no offensive line. And Bedlam is probably an overrated term for the series when one team only wins once every 20 years.
Yeah. Sadly.
I had some hope beginning of the year. When they blew the game to Texas, I was upset. But yesterday it was 21-0 before I could blink. And I never feel good about Oklahoma State having a chance to win that game anyhow. And so it was easier to accept an ass kicking yesterday. Although I didn't like it, but I accepted it.
Okay.
NFL.
Yes. Some big games today.
Steelers today to go 10-0 and not fall in the trap with the Ravens on Thursday. So really big game. And the Ravens have a big game, as we talked about, too, with the Titans. So they can't be looking ahead either. So should be some good football today.
And I think the biggest game on the schedule is Chiefs-Raiders. The Raiders are backish.
The Raiders are back. They just activated a bunch of guys off the COVID thing. So I thought they weren't going to be up to snuff. They're going to be up to snuff.
That is a bummer. We did see Roethlisberger perform incredibly well last week with no practice coming off COVID, but he is, a 16, 17-year veteran?
Yeah.
And the Raiders are just sort of, this is their first year with Tom, with the sort of what they have over there. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, because they beat the Chiefs last time, and then the Chiefs didn't like that they took an extra victory lap in the team bus around the stadium, apparently.
Yeah, Gruden does a lot of things people don't like.
Yeah, Gruden gets under people's skins. He's got that Chucky smile, and Andy Reid didn't take kindly, and they word to words back and forth. But if you love good football and you like rivalries, this is adding a little spice to that. Add a little to it. And the Raiders beat them once already. So, and the Raiders have a very they've got a lot of really good players. Derek Carr is playing exceptionally well. And they're fine mucking it up, which is the opposite of what the Chiefs do. The Raiders will run the clock down, run the ball, play defense, hit you, tackle hard, and play pretty much old schooly sort of, football, where the Chiefs want to just spread you out and run up and down in the track meet. And it's always to see which style really actually works. And, selfishly as the Steeler fan, as much as I love Mahomes, I am rooting for the Raiders to give them their second loss of the year, which would be fantastic.
tomorrow night. Rams, Buccaneers.
Yes.
What are your thoughts?
The Rams, I've decided the Rams and the Packers are my two blind spots in the NFL. I can't get. I know they keep winning, so it's hard to get a hold on them. And obviously, the Rams have, between Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey, two of probably the best positional players in football. The rest of that defense, they're very well coached. It just comes down to Goff. I think everything else is in place for them. Where the Buccaneers are just, we picked them in the beginning of the year to go to the Super Bowl. And they've looked that way half the games, and they've looked almost the opposite half the time. And we saw the Antonio Brown news about him throwing a bike at the security shack. This was before he became a Buccaneer by at least a couple of days. So, because he's starting to look like he's really fitting on that offense, and he can make a huge difference for them offensively. And, I don't know.
I think it's going to be an interesting game. I'm looking forward to watching it. It's a true test for both teams, so we'll see. And, we saw the last game that Brady lost. It's a lot of pressure on him. And now he's got Aaron Donald, so let's look to see if the Bucs offensive line can pick it up. See what happens.
Right, and the Bucs offensive line, again, sometimes he's clean and they're running for 200 yards at a pop, and other times they just can't seem to hold it up.
A big game. Big game.
Yeah, and, I'm still sort of, we talked about this a little bit last week, but, when you look at the Raiders are 6-3, the Dolphins are 6-3, the Browns are 6-3, the Patriots all of a sudden have some life. So it's getting interesting in that, with the extra playoff spot.
Very interesting.
And the Browns have to be the most under the radar 6-3 team, I think, available. Because
how much of the schedule the Browns have left? They have the Ravens again, the Steelers again, correct?
Correct.
And I don't know what else they have. They shouldn't have much because they have the next to last place schedule.
It does seem like, you've got Denzel Ward, you got Myles Garrett, you've got a really good defense. You have easily the best two running back 1-2 combo in football between Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. And it does seem like they're in, let's just run the ball, play defense, not let Baker kill us. And it seems to be working.
That's exactly the point. It's just which Baker shows up.
Yeah. And give him simple throws, tight ends and Jarvis Landry in the backside of the backfield, and just, don't screw it up, Baker. And I think that coach has done a really nice job there. And,
Well, maybe next week, since we have all these big games off the agenda, and we can look at the remaining schedule, maybe we can revise some of our playoff, or we can make some new playoff picks.
Well, I know if I'm the Dolphins, I'm getting real excited because Tua looks really good. And
really, really good.
And the Texans, besides trading away certain players, seem like they're falling apart organizationally. And the quarterback and J.J. Watt, and people don't even want to be there anymore. So Dolphins could be looking at a really high pick in the first and second round, along with their own first round pick. And that coach and that team, I don't know if they're going to make the playoffs this year. I know they're in, when they play the Bills, that'll be the big decider. But, that's an organization that looks like they're in a great, great spot. And an organization on a personal level, I've really never liked the Dolphins. I don't have any reason to dislike the Dolphins, but I've always genuinely disliked them.
Well, they're an interesting team this year.
Yeah. But
you know what happens a month from today?
Christmas?
Opening day in the NBA.
Opening day in the NBA, yes.
So it's going to be really interesting. Be a lot of basketball and a lot of football.
And hopefully those things will all still take place.
It's going to be an interesting 30 days, I'll tell you that.
Well, also because we have Thanksgiving and Christmas and 200,000 new cases a day of COVID every day and college football games being canceled, like the Clemson game yesterday. So it'll be interesting to see how everybody responds over these next few, as everything's on the rise and people are getting ready to stay indoors and closer to each other. Hopefully we can, keep this all under control. because we got no bubble this year for the NBA either. So
probably no fans either, though. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
But still a lot of travel, and there's still players at home in their own markets. So who knows what will happen? Human nature.
Because I did see, and this is, I'm sure everybody else probably watched this, but there was a big special on the BBC with some of the, vaccination guys. And they predicted this time next year, between now and February of 2022, things will be back to normal. So.
Well, that's encouraging.
It isn't. It's encouraging, and okay, let's buckle down for a little bit longer.
Mature behavior in the United States to get back to normal, though. There's still too many crazies out there that won't wear a mask.
It's true.
How about entertainment? I get some entertainment. I'll start us off.
Okay.
I read 3 books this week already.
That's impressive.
I read Matthew McConaughey's biography, Green Light. I read John Grisham's A Time for Mercy with Jake Briggs' character from Time to Kill.
Okay.
And I read Michael Connelly's The Law of Innocence, which is his Lincoln lawyer, Mickey Haller, and Bosch together.
Oh.
And the thing that binds them all together is Matthew McConaughey played Mickey Haller, and he played Jake Briggs.
Exactly. It's like you kind of the little synergy going there.
And I will tell you, the McConaughey book was one of the most interesting biographies I've ever read. In fact, I'm going to buy a copy for you and Dan.
I see.
It's just a really interesting read of a really interesting person, how he went about his life.
Yeah.
I really, really enjoyed it. And I don't want to give away any more than that, but I'll tell people you should read the book.
Okay.
It's compiled over 35 years of diaries and journal notes, and a lot of this stuff is reproduced in the book. And the cool thing about reading it on an iPad or a Kindle is, his original notes are there, and sometimes they're hard to read, and you can just press a button and they'll translate them into text for you.
Oh, that is nice.
It is really nice. But so, just really, really enjoyed those 3 books. That's my entertainment for the week. I haven't really watched anything. I think Mom and I are going to start Yellowstone.
I keep hearing really good things about that. In fact, people at work are
I do
sort of.
too, and so we're going to start at the beginning. I think it's 30 episodes or something, so we're going to check it out.
Yeah, and I believe that is, while Peacock is a little bit tough to navigate as far as knowing what's free and what's part of the premium package, I believe all of Yellowstone is available for free if you download the Peacock app.
Cool.
But some of their other shows, you get the pilot for free or 2 episodes for free, and then you have to subscribe to Peacock Premium, just for those out there wondering. Because I thought it was going to be like Hulu, where there was like a free, sort of their free network package where you get shows with commercials and then, a premium without commercials. But apparently that's not what they're doing. So just keep that in mind.
Any entertainment recommendations from you this week?
I don't think so. We've been slowly watching The Crown season 4, which, if you like The Crown, it's more Crown.
Okay.
I sort of have a food recommendation. I think I mentioned it before, but Sweet Handcraft, which is this Vietnamese ice cream cookie shop. They make incredible chocolate cookies, like big giant ones. And then they have other versions of that too, including like butterbeer, double chocolate, and some things along those lines. But they're big, those like over an inch thick in the middle, tons of chocolate chips, crispy, chewy, really good. And they also make like the weird waffle cones for ice cream. And they've got some, very Asian flavors. But we got a mix and match of macaroons. Macaroons? Yeah. Which I don't normally think. I never really think about them. They're always at fancy restaurants sitting on plates. But we got some pumpkin spice, some Myers lemon. She got a blueberry goat cheese, like some different varieties, and they were just really, really good. I think it's one of those cookies you don't really think of, but I don't think of it typically. I don't think we had a lot growing up, but every time I have them, I really do enjoy them. And really bold, like you really could taste the lemon, you could taste the pumpkin in the cookies. And then a creme brulee one, which might be my favorite. So.
And we know we've got to have a lot of pumpkin spice this time of year.
Yeah. And I don't consider pumpkin spice to be a basic flavor. It's just delicious. So, for all the pumpkin people out there. But yeah, I wish I had more food stories, but didn't really do a lot of eating out or going anywhere exciting.
No, and I'm out here in Palm Desert, and we're going to be ordering in or picking up. There's no dining, no dine in options in California right now. You can only dine outside or take your food home.
Yeah,
And it's probably going to be the way in a lot of part of the country as we move forward now.
exactly. And if you are getting together to celebrate your holidays, make sure you just be careful. Like I said, I can tell you firsthand. No matter how, being careful you can still end up with COVID regardless. And if you get it, it can, for some people, they're fine. Other people, it's devastating. And for me, it was just brutal. And just be careful.
Please do. Have a great Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
We'll be rooting hard for the Steelers. The Steelers could make my Thanksgiving with another win over the Ravens, which would pretty much put the division out of reach.
Yeah. Well, we need a Titans win and a Steeler win. That'd be great. Very, very great.
All right, everyone. Happy Thanksgiving. Stay safe. Wear your mask.